Professor Wiseguy here with another book report. You know, I mentioned in my previous video about Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth that I had been kind of on a Jules Verne kick recently. And so this is the second of 3 videos about his 3 most famous novels. Maybe I'll get around to doing something else eventually, but I've gone on to other things since then. The book for today is his famous novel from 1872, 8 years after Journey to the Center of the Earth, Around the World in 80 Days. You know, when I was a young pup, Kansas City, my hometown, opened a new theme park, Worlds of Fun. Now, Worlds of Fun is still in the northern part of Kansas City, and but they've kind of lost sight of their original theming. The original theming was supposed to be a take on Around the World in 80 Days. In fact, they used as their main logo a balloon, a hot air balloon, or actually helium balloon, and they painted a Kansas City water tower nearby to match their colors and to sort of be big advertisement. I'm not sure what the arrangement was with the city, and it doesn't really matter. They had some really great theming, boats from famous movies, props from famous movies. Most of that stuff has gone away because it doesn't bring money into the park. Instead, they'd rather have teenage boys shoot 3-point shots and pay money to do that so that they can then dribble basketballs annoyingly through the park for the rest of the day. Am I bitter? Maybe. Anyway, Around the World in 80 Days is a novel, quite successful, by Jules Verne. And we've talked about Jules Verne, a French writer. The movie version of this thing is, not surprisingly, considerably different. It was the most famous version of it, of Around the World in 80 Days, was in 1956. It was nominated for an Oscar that year and starred the British actor David Niven, a Mexican comic actor who's just a legend, but most Americans don't know about him because he's a Mexican actor. Cantinflas was his stage name. And then playing a rescued Indian princess, Shirley MacLaine. I mean, Shirley MacLaine is about as white bread as you get, I think. But, oh well, it was the 1950s. Well, I want to look at the book. Now, in the book, Phileas Fogg, the main character who was played by David Niven in the movie, engages in a wager with his friends at his club. He has nothing to gain from this and everything to lose. He bets £20,000, which was a huge amount of money in the mid-1800s. He bets £20,000 that he can go around the world in, well, you guessed it, 80 days. He sets off to do this, taking £20,000 with him in a bag, basically expecting that he's going to spend that money as he goes around the world. This is almost his entire fortune. So if he gets back, he's just going to replenish the £20,000 because that's just what a British nobleman, or not nobleman, but a wealthy British upper crust kind of guy will do. You know, he will risk $20,000, he will spend $20,000 to make $20,000. And of course, if he fails in the endeavor, he has spent his 20,000, I said dollars, spend his 20,000 pounds, and he'll have pretty much nothing. You know, just whatever's at the bottom of the bag when he gets back. Well, I don't want to spoil it all, but let's say it is a happy ending. The book works really well, and one of the things that I noticed that is similar to Journey to the Center of the Earth is there really isn't an antagonist. There is a policeman who is convinced that Phileas Fogg is actually a crook who's traveling to avoid justice. But he's not exactly an antagonist, and in fact, in the end, becomes an ally. It's not your... if it had been a strictly American scripted Hollywood scripted story from the beginning, the people from the club would have hired agents to go follow Phileas Fogg and slow him down because, well, you know, we're not going to lose this bet. Just to be sure. All of that's fine, and I mentioned the Worlds of Fun, the theme park, and their balloon theming, and the idea of the balloon has become, and the image of the balloon has become a just constant idea in the representation of this novel. And the killer is there's no balloon in the novel. In fact, the film's itinerary has them going to places that the book never takes them. Why? Well, because it was pretty. It made nice shots. And that balloon, wow, that makes a great shot. And people remember that. It was good on the movie poster. It's good at a theme park. I want to look at the characters of this thing for just a minute, because as far as looking at the story, this is one of the things that I find kind of fascinating. First of all, Jules Verne creates a protagonist, Phileas Fogg, who, like the protagonist in Journey to the Center of the Earth, Professor Otto Lindenbrock, he is driven, actually foolishly driven. A sensible person would not have done this. The professor in Journey to the Center of the Earth risks his life foolishly. This isn't just doing something dangerous. It's doing something where the odds are stacked against him, and he should have starved or dehydrated. But he doesn't. And similarly, in Journey to the Center of the Earth, Phileas Fogg should have been ruined, but he wasn't, and it's all good. Also, in this story, we have an example of a devoted, ridiculously devoted servant who is played for comic effect, but he is utterly going to follow everything that his employer, even though his employer just hired him the same day that they left England. Passepartout, the character played by Cantinflas in the film, is a devoted servant who will do anything and everything Phileas Fogg asks him to do. Yes, he does mess things up a little bit by being a little loose-lipped, but that does not cut across his devotion. So we have a foolhardy protagonist, we have a loyal assistant, and then we have no real antagonist. There are people who want to burn Shirley MacLaine to death because her husband died and things like that. But basically, there is no overarching antagonist, which I find kind of interesting. Is this book worth reading? Well, I think it is. I think the filmmakers did some smart things because the book plays reasonably well when you're talking about the schedules of steamships and the Suez Canal and train schedules, and is the train across India absolutely complete, all those sorts of things. Those kind of work in text, they become a little more boring in a film. So I think they smartly put some things in there that were a little more photogenic, a little more exciting on the screen. Or maybe it's just 100 years later, people expected something different. So, Around the World in 80 Days, is it worth your time? I would say yes. I think it's intriguing as it unveils some things about the culture of that time, but it also is just an entertaining and enjoyable read. So check it out. But for now, get out of here.